WWE Elimination Chamber results February 19, 2022. The WWE Elimination Chamber kickoff pre-show opens up from the WWE TV studios in Stamford, Connecticut as Jackie Redmond welcomes us. She's joined in the studio by Peter Rosenberg and Madcap. They hype tonight's show. We get a promo for the chamber structure. The panel discusses the chamber matches and then sends us to Kevin Patrick backstage at the Jeddah Superdome. Patrick is with Natalya, who has a bone to pick with Rhea Ripley. Natalya isn't happy with Ripley calling herself the Iron Woman of WWE. Natalya says that is her title and she has 3 Guinness World Records to prove it. Natalya predicts Liv Morgan will win the Women's Elimination Chamber so that one day she can be as great as Natalya and become a Triple Crown champion. Back from a break and we get a live look at the massive Jeddah Superdome in Jeddah. We get footage and a discussion on tonight's Raw Women's title match. Camp believes WWE Hall of Famer Lita might win the title. We also get a discussion and video package on tonight's Falls Count Anywhere match between Madcap Moss and Drew McIntyre. The panel shows us a video for the WWE Universal title match and discuss champion Roman Reigns or WWE Hall of Famer Bill Goldberg. We also get a video for the Viking Raiders vs SmackDown Tag Team Champions the Usos. The panel then discusses Ronda Rousey and Naomi vs Sonya Deville and SmackDown Women's Champion Charlotte Flair. Redmond sends us to Jeddah for our kickoff match. Rey Mysterio vs. The Miz. We're live from the Jeddah Superdome as Michael Cole welcomes us to the WWE Elimination Chamber kickoff match. He's joined at ringside by Corey Graves and Byron Saxton. We go right to the ring and out first comes The Miz. We see recent happenings that led to this match. Out next comes Rey Mysterio with Dominic Mysterio. The bell rings and Miz rushes Rey with a kick to boos. Miz beats Rey down in the corner and stomps away as the boos continue. Miz whips Rey hard into the turnbuckles and he goes down. Miz poses in the corner to more boos. Rey fights back and drops Miz into place for 619 but Miz scrambles to the floor. Miz has words with Dominic at ringside. He tries to return to the ring but Rey kicks him back to the floor. Rey runs the ring and slides under the bottom rope with a big splash to Miz on the floor. Rey returns to the ring but Miz stalls at ringside until Dominic rolls him back in while the referee is distracted by Rey. Rey mounts Miz with right hands as the crowd counts along now. Miz fights back but Rey stuns him. Rey goes to the top but Miz takes his legs out and Rey ends upside down in the corner. Miz unloads with kicks while Rey is upside down. The referee warns him and Dominic encourages his dad. Miz slingshots Rey's neck under the bottom rope. Rey goes to the floor to regroup but Miz sends him face first into the barrier, then rolls him back in. Rey fights back but Miz levels him with a knee to the gut, then delivers the running knee to the face. Rey kicks out at 2. Miz grounds Rey and drives knees to the back now. Rey fights out of a hold. Dominic ends up punching Miz from the floor while the referee is distracted, but Miz took a swing at him first. Rey rolls Miz for 2. Miz drops Rey and argues with the referee. Miz goes back to work on Rey while talking trash to Dominic. Miz unloads with the it kicks now. Rey ducks the roundhouse kick and Miz runs into an elbow, then a kick, and another kick. Rey uses a Hurricane Rana to send Miz into the ring post. Rey goes to the top as fans chant 619, now. Rey with the top rope seated senton, then a springboard crossbody for 2. Miz with a cheap shot to the throat. Miz rolls through a pin attempt and kicks Miz for a close 2 count. Miz sends Rey to the apron but he hangs on. Miz turns around and gets kicked. Rey fights back in but Miz ends up nailing a big DDT for another close 2 count. Miz shows some frustration now. Rey blocks the figure 4 and they tangle some more, then he blocks the skull-crushing finale. Rey goes on and connects with 619. Rey goes to the top as fans cheer him on. Miz rolls to the floor and fans boo. Miz grabs a steel chair but Rey flies out and takes him down with a splash to the floor. Rey brings Miz back into the ring but Miz rolls right back out. Dominic runs over and stops Miz from grabbing the chair while Rey has words with the referee. The referee looks over and it appears Dominic has hit Miz. Dominic is ejected by the referee as Miz smirks. Miz comes from behind and sends Rey into the corner. Rey blocks the skull-crushing finale and rolls Miz for the pin to win. Winner, Rey Mysterio. After the match, Rey stands tall as the music hits but Miz attacks him from behind. Dominic rushes the ring and fights Miz off, dropping him with a super kick. The Mysterios take Miz down and then nail a double 619 for a big pop. Dominic goes to the top and hits the frog splash. Rey goes to the top, pays tribute to WWE Hall of Famer Eddie Guerrero, then hits a splash. Rey and Dominic celebrate as the music hits. We get a look at fans outside of the Jeddah Superdome and some making their way in. The panel hypes tonight's WWE Universal title match, then we get a video package for the WWE title chamber match. That's it for the kickoff. The 2022 WWE Elimination Chamber Premium Live event opens up with a video package. We're live from the Jeddah Superdome in Jeddah, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia as the pyro explodes around the dome outside. Michael Cole welcomes us to ringside, where he's joined by Corey Graves and Byron Saxton. The crowd is packed inside the Jeddah Superdome. We get a look at the Arabic announce team at ringside. We get a look at WWE Hall of Famer Bill Goldberg as Cole sends us to a video package on today's Universal title match. WWE Universal title match, Bill Goldberg vs Roman Reigns. We go back to the arena and out first comes the Bloodline, WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman and SmackDown Tag Team Champions the Usos. Heyman hands the strap to Reigns and he raises it into the air as huge pyro explodes on the stage. Heyman marches to the ring behind Reigns, holding the title in the air. The Usos stay back, then return to the locker room. Reigns finally enters the ring and raises the title to more pyro. Reigns takes the mic and asks the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to acknowledge him. The crowd is loud and they respond with mostly cheers. The Goldberg chants start up now. The music hits and out comes WWE Hall of Famer Bill Goldberg. Goldberg comes out and punches through the pyro as fans chant his name and Reigns looks on. We get formal ring introductions from Mike Rome as Reigns and Goldberg stare each other down. The bell rings and here we go. They look around at the crowd and then stare each other down. Fans start with dueling chants early. Reigns isn't happy with the loud Goldberg chants now. They finally lock up and Reigns decks Goldberg with two right hands after they struggle with the lockup. Reigns with a headbutt and more punches. Reigns sends Goldberg over the top rope to the floor. Reigns follows and slams Goldberg face first into the Arabic announce table, and again. Goldberg counters and sends Reigns into the barrier. Goldberg works Reigns over at ringside now. Reigns goes back in at the 8 count and Goldberg follows. Reigns with an uppercut and big forearms over the back. The referee warns Reigns and Reigns gets in his face. Reigns charges but Goldberg leaps up with a spear out of nowhere. Goldberg plays Tati crowd instead of capitalizing. Goldberg calls for the jackhammer but Reigns turns it into a runnage for a close 2 count. Reigns has Goldberg stunned as he waits for the Superman punch. Reigns connects and gets hyped up while Goldberg is down, yelling about how he told us so. Reigns waits in the corner now as Goldberg slowly gets back up. Reigns calls for the spear but Goldberg connects with his spear instead. Goldberg is fired up again but slow to capitalize. Goldberg goes for the jackhammer again but Reigns blocks it and turns it into the guillotine submission in the middle of the ring. Goldberg drops to one knee as Reigns tightens the hold. Goldberg rams Reigns back into the corner but Reigns keeps the hold locked in. Goldberg sends Reigns back into the corner again but Reigns tightens the hold. Reigns wraps his legs around Goldberg but Goldberg still rams him back into the corner. Goldberg finally goes down and starts fading as Reigns keeps the hold locked in. The referee checks on Goldberg but he goes out fairly quickly, unable to lift his arm back up. The referee calls the match. Winner, Roman Reigns. After the match, Reigns stands tall with the title as the music hits and Heyman joins him. Reigns and Heyman raise their fingers in the air as the referee checks on Goldberg. Heyman places the layback around Reigns' neck and bows to him. We go to replays. Reigns and Heyman head up the ramp to end the segment. Cole talks some about Jeddah and sends us to a video package for the men's Elimination Chamber match for tonight. Women's Elimination Chamber for a Raw Women's title shot, Doudrop vs Liv Morgan vs Bianca Belair vs Nikki A.S.H vs Rhea Ripley vs Alexa Bliss. We go back to the ring and the Elimination Chamber structure lowers as Rome goes over the rules. The winner of this match will challenge Raw Women's Champion Becky Lynch at WrestleMania 38. Out first comes Bianca Belair, who has the advantage and will exit her pod last. Belair is locked into her pod. Doudrop is out next and she also enters her pod. Out next comes Rhea Ripley. Ripley takes a look at the chamber and then enters her pod, then does pull UPS from the roof. Out next comes Nikki A.S.H as Ripley stares her down. Nikki approaches Ripley's pod and they have words. Nikki also yells at the others. Out next comes Liv Morgan, who stops and looks at the chamber, apparently getting a bit emotional. Nikki is still waiting in the middle of the ring. Liv taunts the other competitors inside their pods. Liv then waits with Nikki in the middle of the ring as Alexa Bliss makes her return to action. Bliss has her same look, just not as dark but close. Bliss stops and checks out the chamber as Cole reminds us she won the first ever women's chamber. Bliss enters the ring, stares down Nikki and Liv, then taunts Doudrop in her pod. Bliss stares down Ripley and then enters her pod. We see a swing set up in Bliss' pod, the one from her playground. Bliss laughs and takes a swing as the bell rings. Liv and Nikki lock up and trade holds. Liv with a takedown and a Hurricane Rana. Nikki sends Liv into the middle rope, then out to the steel platform. Liv blocks a shot into the steel chains, Nikki does the same thing. Nikki drops Liv on the steel, then goes over to yell at Ripley. Nikki wastes time with Bliss now, allowing Liv to drop her on the steel. Liv gets whipped into the chamber wall off a counter. Nikki with more offense and a 2 count. Nikki beats Liv around to keep her down. The timer starts up and the next entrant into the match is Doudrop. Nikki is excited to join forces with Doudrop. Doudrop shakes her hand but holds it and drops her with a headbutt on the steel. Doudrop tells her there are no partners in the chamber. Doudrop scoops Nikki and rams her into the chamber wall, then talks some more trash. Doudrop with a big running splash against the chamber wall to put Nikki back down. Liv comes flying but Doudrop catches her on her shoulders, then rams her into the chains, then slams her on the steel platform. Doudrop with a running senton on the steel to Liv. Doudrop taunts Bliss and talks more trash as she continues to dominate. Doudrop rubs Liv's face into the steel. Nikki dodges Doudrop and sends her into the ring post. Nikki celebrates in the ring while Liv and Doudrop are down on the steel platform. The timer starts up and the next entrant is Ripley. Ripley corners Nikki on the steel but Doudrop decks Ripley from behind. Ripley super kicks Doudrop in the middle of the ring. Ripley stares Nikki back down and stalks her but Nikki starts climbing the chains. Liv comes for her but gets kicked down. Ripley grabs Nikki's leg but gets kicked away. Ripley climbs up with Nikki on the side of the wall now. Ripley slams Nikki's face into the steel and she falls onto Liv and Doudrop. Ripley climbs back down and has Nikki alone in the ring now. Ripley with a big riptide for the pin to eliminate Nikki. Nikki A.S.H has been eliminated. Ripley works over Liv now. The timer starts up and the next entrant is Bliss for a pop. Bliss dodges Ripley and levels Liv with a shoulder. Bliss fights off Liv and Ripley, taking turns on each. Bliss screams out for a big pop. Bliss with double knees and then a moonsault to Liv for a 2 count. Liv sends Bliss face first into the turnbuckles. Liv with a double stomp to the back. Ripley launches Liv across the ring. Ripley runs into a double stomp from Liv in the corner. Fans chant for Liv as she goes to the top but Doudrop shoves her off, and she hits the pod on the way down. Doudrop climbs the corner but Ripley decks her. Ripley climbs to the second rope with Doudrop but Doudrop knocks her to the mat. Liv rocks Doudrop and climbs to the top for a big sunset powerbomb. Liv covers for the pin and the elimination. Doudrop has been eliminated. Liv sells a left knee injury now. The timer goes off and Belair enters the match last. She immediately drop kicks Liv, tangles with Bliss and rocks her with a forearm to the jaw. Liv kicks Belair and goes to the top but Belair presses her high in the air, holds her with one arm, then dumps her back into the ring. Belair comes back in and catches Bliss with a spinebuster. Belair with a springboard and moonsault to Bliss, then a kip up for a pop. Ripley and Belair face off now. Bliss and Liv crawl their way. Belair and Ripley change their mind and deliver in stereo vertical suplexes to Liv and Bliss. Belair has Liv, and Ripley has Bliss. They drop their opponents and then face off. Ripley smacks Belair in the face. Belair smacks her back and unloads. They start brawling in the middle of the ring now. Belair with a big right and a KOD attempt but Ripley lands on her feet. Liv jumps in between and drops them both with double knees. Bliss runs over and levels Liv with a cutter. Bliss goes to the top and hits Twisted Bliss to Liv. Bliss holds it for the pin to get the elimination. Liv Morgan has been eliminated. Belair ends up dropping Ripley with the KOD after they collide with Bliss involved. Belair covers Ripley for the elimination. Rhea Ripley has been eliminated. Bliss and Belair go at it now. Bliss with a destroyer for a close 2 count. Fans chant "This is awesome," now. Bliss steps on Belair and goes to the top. Belair rolls out to the steel but Bliss still flies. Belair catches her in mid-air and powerbombs her into the chamber wall twice, using the top rope to slingshot her. Belair dumps Bliss back into the ring. Belair goes to the top but lands hard on a flip as Bliss moves. They trade counters now. Belair blocks a DDT and handsprings out of it. Belair hits the handspring and moonsault but Bliss gets her knees up. Bliss rolls Belair for a close 2 count, and again. The referee checks on Bliss. Bliss runs into an elbow in the corner. They go at it and Bliss tries for Sister Abigail but it's blocked. Belair drops Bliss with KOD for the pin to win. Winner and new number 1 contender to the Raw Women's title, Bianca Belair. After the match, Belair stands tall and celebrates as the music hits. Belair is now going to WrestleMania 38 to face the winner of Lita vs. Raw Women's Champion Becky Lynch. We go to replays. Back from a break and we see how WWE superstars hosted WWE community events in Jeddah this week. Ronda Rousey and Naomi vs. Sonya Deville and SmackDown Women's Champion Charlotte Flair. We go back to the ring and out first comes SmackDown Women's Champion Charlotte Flair as the pyro goes off. We see more fireworks going off outside of the Superdome. Out next comes Sonya Deville, still with her arm in a sling. Naomi is out first for her team. Out next comes Ronda Rousey, wearing the same judo gi she wore in the Olympics years ago. Cole shows us a video package to hype Rousey up. Rousey stares Flair down as the referee ties one arm behind her back. The bell rings and Rousey starts with Deville. Deville calls a timeout so she can remove her sling. Rousey laughs at Deville's latest ruse. Deville unloads on Rousey from behind in the corner off a distraction by Flair. Deville with a headlock now. Rousey sends Deville to the mat and then kicks her in the head. Rousey with a leaping knee to the head. Rousey wants Flair. Flair plays to the crowd. Deville tags Flair into a big pop. Flair stalls and tags right back out. Naomi tags in and unloads on Deville, nailing a thigh press and right hands. Deville turns it around in the corner, blocking a bulldog and sending Naomi face first into the post. Deville covers for 2. More back and forth. Naomi comes back and tags in Rousey. Rousey drops Deville and tries for a one-arm armbar but Flair runs in and levels her. Flair sends Rousey's good arm into the turnbuckle and Rousey seethes. Deville unloads on Rousey and in comes Flair. Flair with big strikes in the corner. Flair works on Rousey's good arm and continues with big strikes as fans rally for Rousey. Deville tags back in and keeps Rousey in the corner with a boot to the throat. Rousey tries to block but Deville and Flair continue beating her down with stiff shots in the corner. Flair comes in and drops Rousey face first into her boot. Flair then kicks Naomi off the apron to booze. Rousey finally fights out of the corner. Rousey keeps fighting Flair but Flair cuts her off and takes her down. Flair focuses on the good arm now as fans chant for Rousey. Rousey kicks Flair but Flair stays on her. Rousey kicks Flair back and in comes Naomi. Naomi unloads on Flair and drop kicks Deville off the apron. Naomi with a big kick to Flair and a Hurricane Rana. Naomi with a glow kick to Flair, sending her out of the ring. Naomi poses for a pop. Naomi then leaps over the top rope with a corkscrew plancha to take Flair back down. Naomi brings it back in with a crossbody to Flair for a 2 count. More back and forth between Flair and Naomi now. Flair catches her in mid-air and hits a big powerbomb for 2. Flair goes for the figure 4 but Rousey breaks it up. Deville comes from behind and sends Rousey to the floor. Deville tags in and nails a running knee to Naomi's face for another close 2 count. Rousey tags in and unloads on Deville with left-hand strikes. Rousey gets Deville on her shoulders and drops her with her Piper's Pit finisher. Rousey grabs Deville's arm but taunts Flair, daring her to come in. Flair teases coming in but waves Rousey off. Rousey still taunts her with Deville's arm. Rousey realizes Flair isn't coming in to fight, so she finally snaps down onto Deville's arm with the arm bar and Deville quickly taps out for the finish. Winners, Ronda Rousey and Naomi. After the match, Rousey and Naomi stand tall together as the music hits. Rousey clutches her arm to end the segment. Back from a break and the announcers hype WrestleMania 38. We get a video package for tonight's Falls Count Anywhere match. Falls Count Anywhere match, Drew McIntyre vs Madcap Moss. We go back to the ring and Rome goes over the rules for this match. Out first comes Madcap Moss with Happy Baron Corbin. Drew McIntyre is out next with his sword, Angela. He raises it on the stage as the pyro goes off. Drew enters the ring and taunts the heels with his sword. The bell rings but Drew gets double teamed by Moss and Corbin as fans boo. Moss pounds on Drew now as Corbin looks on from ringside. Drew with a big clothesline for a pop. Drew then knocks Moss out of the ring and follows, working him over and sending him into the barrier. Drew levels Moss with a big chop on the ramp. Corbin runs from behind and decks Drew. Drew chases Corbin up the ramp now. Corbin runs away to the back. Drew runs around to Moss charging him but Drew drops him with a big boot. Drew sends Moss into the set. Drew goes to powerbomb Moss off the stage but Corbin makes the save. They hit a double suplex on the ramp and Moss covers but Drew kicks out at 2. Moss beats Drew down the ramp as Corbin follows. Drew takes a big fall away slam on the ramp but still kicks out. Fans boo Moss and Corbin as Moss beats Drew back to the ringside area. Moss sends Drew into the steel ring steps and brings him back in. Drew finally gets a break, leveling Moss with a big throw. Drew with another big throw across the ring, then a kip up. Drew with an Alabama slam in the middle of the ring, dropping Moss on the top of his head. The referee checks on Moss. Corbin distracts Drew, forcing him to chase him around the ring. Moss tries to interfere but Drew lands a big belly-to-belly throw on the floor. Drew launches Moss over the announce table with a belly-to-belly throw. We get a replay of the stiff Alabama slam that spiked Moss onto his head. Drew stalks Moss at ringside now. Drew readies for a Claymore kick but Corbin nails him from behind with a steel chair. Moss and Corbin then run Drew through the barrier. Moss covers for a close 2 count on the floor. Corbin is frustrated. Drew slowly crawls back in the ring as Corbin encourages Moss. Moss climbs to the top turnbuckle but Drew rocks him. Drew with a big chop while Moss is up top now. Drew climbs up for a superplex and he hits it for a big pop. Drew also lands bad but is able to drape his arm over Moss for a 2 count. Fans chant "This is awesome," now. Moss and Drew go at it now. Moss backslides Drew for a 2 count. Drew comes right back with a future shock DDT. Drew goes for his sword but Corbin runs in. Drew almost catches Corbin with the sword as Corbin retreats back out of the ring. Drew holds Angela in the air while delivering a claymore to Moss. Drew points the sword out at Corbin while pinning Moss with a boot on the chest for the win. Winner, Drew McIntyre. After the match, McIntyre stands tall with his sword as the music hits. Corbin looks on from the ramp as we go to replays. Drew poses on the turnbuckles now, warning Drew with the sword. We see fireworks exploding above the Jeddah Superdome as Drew celebrates in the ring. Kevin Patrick interviews The Miz backstage. He's upset about what happened with the Mysterios, and says he will find a superb athlete and a global star to help him even the odds. Miz has someone in mind and says he has to go make a phone call. Back from a break and Cole shows us how the WWE crew took part in a Royal Kingdom dinner on Friday night. Raw Women's title match, Lita vs Becky Lynch. We go back to the ring and out first comes WWE Hall of Famer Lita to a pop. Raw Women's Champion Becky Lynch is out next to a pop. The winner of this match will defend against new number 1 contender Bianca Belair at WrestleMania 38. We get formal ring introductions from Rome as Lita and Lynch face off. The bell rings and here we go. They lock up and Lynch goes for the arm, taking Lita down for the disarm her early on but Lita counters. Lita comes back with a shoulder to drop Lynch. Fans do dueling chants now. Lynch rocks Lita in the mouth and talks some trash. Lita ducks Lynch but Lynch kicks her. Lita blocks a kick and sweeps Becky, then nails an arm drag and a slap. Lita blocks a right hand and fights back, unloading with strikes. Lita with a Hurricane Rana takedown. Becky blocks the twist of fate. Becky with a fence in the corner now. She talks some trash as fans boo. Becky ends up using Lita's hair to whiplash her on the top rope. Lynch comes back in and stomps away and beats on Lita to keep her down. Becky uses the middle rope to choke Lita now as the referee warns her. Lynch talks some trash to the crowd. Becky stomps away in the corner now as the referee warns her again. Fans rally for Lita. Becky with a top rope leg drop for another 2 count. They tangle some and Lita mounts Becky with right hands. Lynch rolls free. Lita runs into a back elbow in the corner, then a kick that puts her down. Becky unloads while Lita is on the apron now. Lynch with another second rope leg drop to the back of the neck. Lita kicks out at 2. Lynch takes her time and connects with a big exploder suplex. Lynch talks some trash and nails another big exploder. Lynch plays to the crowd for boos now. Lita blocks the third big exploder and counters with a DDT in the middle of the ring. Lynch can't believe it. Lita with right hands now. Lynch fights back but Lita unloads with strikes. Lita ducks a clothesline and nails one of her own, and another. Lita with a corner splash. Lita kicks Becky away from the corner, and takes her down in the corner. Lita flies from the second rope with a crossbody for a 2 count. Lita goes for the twist of fate but it's blocked. Lita fights off the disarm her and rolls Becky for a 2 count. They trade pin attempts. Becky rolls Lita from behind again and uses the top rope but the referee catches her. Lita pulls Becky into a sleeper on the mat now. Becky rolls over to the bottom rope to break the sleeper. Lita misses a corner splash. Lita blocks a corner kick and nails a powerbomb for another 2 count. Lita goes back to the top but Becky rolls to the floor to avoid the Lita salt. Lita goes to the floor and beats Becky around, slamming her face first into the announce table, then sending her into the apron. Lita rolls Becky back in at the 7 count. Becky drops Lita over the top rope with a stunner. Becky goes to the top but Lita cuts her off. Lita with the Hurricane Rana takedown from WWE Hall of Famer Trish Stratus. Becky blocks the twist of fate but Lita nails it for another close 2 count. More back and forth now. Becky finally applies the disarm her in the middle of the ring. Lita goes for the rope to break it but Lynch nails the manhandle slam. Becky holds it for the pin but Lita gets her foot on the bottom rope to break it. Becky can't believe it. Becky snaps a bit and unloads on Lita. More back and forth now. Lita goes on to hit the twist of fate. Lita climbs to the top for the Lita salt, but Becky kicks out just in time. Lita can't believe it. Becky ends up missing a moonsault, but Lita misses a twist of fate. Becky nails the manhandle slam for the pin to retain. Winner, Becky Lynch. After the match, Becky stands tall with her title as the music hits. We go to replays. We come back and Lynch is gone. Lita stands tall as fans chant her name. Lita's music hits and she comes back into the ring for a send-off. She exits the ring again and greets fans at ringside. The announcers send us to a video package on The Undertaker's upcoming WWE Hall of Fame induction. SmackDown Tag Team Titles match, the Viking Raiders vs. the Usos. We go back to the ring and out come the Viking Raiders, Eric and Ivar. SmackDown Tag Team Champions the Usos suddenly attack from the side at the bottom of the ramp. Jimmy Uso and G Uso beat the Vikings at ringside and talk trash while destroying them. The Usos double team Ivar and slam him on top of Eric. Several referees rush over and check on the Usos as they back away from the Vikings. The Usos raise their fingers in the air and celebrate up the ramp. It looks like there will be no match. We go to another break. We get another break and hype for WrestleMania 38. The announcers send us to a video package for tonight's main event. Elimination Chamber match for the WWE title, Brock Lesnar vs Seth Rollins vs Austin Theory vs Riddle vs AJ Styles vs Bobby Lashley. We go back to the ring for tonight's main event as WWE Champion Bobby Lashley makes his way to the Elimination Chamber structure. Lashley stands tall with the title as fireworks explode over the Superdome. AJ Styles is out next as more pyro goes off on the stage. AJ enters his pod and out next comes Riddle. Riddle heads to the chamber for a pop. Austin Theory is out next. He stops outside of the chamber and takes a selfie. Theory enters the chamber and takes selfies with the other participants in their pods. Seth Rollins is out next, dancing his way to the chamber. Brock Lesnar is out next to a big pop from the Jeddah crowd. Lesnar bounces around on the stage as the pyro goes off, then he heads to the chamber. Lesnar enters and laughs at Lashley in his pod. He intimidates the other participants, then enters his own pod. The bell rings as Rollins and Theory go at it. Rollins ducks Theory and shows off some. Theory with a headlock. They run the ropes and Rollins nails a sling blade. Rollins dances around as the crowd sings his theme. Theory attacks and hits a fall away slam. Theory with a back suplex and a flying clothesline. Theory with more offense, then a fisherman's suplex for a close 2 count. Rollins comes back with 2 big kicks, then sends Theory out to the steel. Rollins sends Theory into the chamber wall and grinds his face into the chains. Rollins decks Theory and goes for a buckle bomb. Rollins puts Theory through Lashley's pod with a buckle bomb. The glass shatters and Lashley goes down. Lashley is down and dazed now. The timer goes off and the next man in is Riddle. Riddle with a big overhead kick and running forearms to Rollins, then an exploder suplex from the corner. Riddle with a running senton. Riddle with a senton to Theory on the steel. We see officials and trainers in the chamber checking on Lashley now. Rollins and Riddle continue trading offense. Riddle climbs up to the top of a pod but Rollins cuts him off. Rollins with a huge inverted suplex from the top. Riddle kicks out at 2. We see Adam Pearce and others helping Lashley out of the chamber now. We see a replay of Rollins' buckle bomb to Theory through Lashley's pod. Lashley has left the match and Cole says he hopes to have an update soon. Rollins with a big splash to Riddle for a 2 count. The timer goes off and the next entrant is AJ. AJ rushes in and goes to work on Rollins and Riddle as fans cheer him on. AJ with a close 2 count on Riddle. AJ with a torture rack and big slam to Rollins for a close 2 count. AJ leaps out with a big right hand to Theory on the steel. AJ drops Theory face first onto the steel platform. Riddle and AJ go at it in the ring now. AJ with a dragon screw leg whip to put Riddle down. AJ with more kicks as he focuses on Riddle's knee now. Lesnar looks on from his pod and smiles at AJ. AJ takes Riddle to the top, but here comes Rollins from behind. He sends AJ to the mat and climbs up on Riddle's back, but AJ cuts Rollins off and now sends him to the mat. AJ climbs up, but Rollins climbs up next to him. They go for a double back suplex to Riddle, but Theory runs over and decks them all. Theory brings everyone to the mat, except for Riddle, who hits a floating bro to Theory from the top. Theory kicks out at 2. Riddle sends Rollins to the steel next to AJ. He goes for a double draping DDT and nails it for a pop. Riddle gets the crowd hyped up now. He drops to the mat like Randy Orton does. The timer goes off and Riddle sees this, so he gets ready for Lesnar. The next man in the match is Lashley, but he's in the back being checked on. Lesnar is furious. He kicks himself out of the pod and unloads on everyone to a huge pop. Lesnar with a big F5 to Rollins for the pin. Seth Rollins has been eliminated. Cole says Lashley is undergoing concussion protocol testing and will not be back in the match. Lesnar levels Riddle and pins him for the elimination. Riddle has been eliminated. Lesnar stalks AJ and Theory now. Lesnar with a F5 to AJ for the pin. AJ Styles has been eliminated. Theory is still down out on the steel. Lesnar kicks AJ out of the chamber. Theory gets up and sees what has happened. Lesnar looks at him and smiles. Theory tries to escape, but Lesnar makes sure the door is shut. Lesnar removes his gloves and starts stalking Theory around the chamber. Theory is trying to keep distance between them. Lesnar chases Theory now. Theory goes into a pod to escape, but Lesnar kicks his way through it, drags Theory out and delivers a big suplex on the steel. Lesnar grabs Theory and looks to put him away, but Theory nails a low blow. Lesnar goes down and is in pain now. Theory nails the rolling drop kick to bring Lesnar to one knee. Theory follows up with a DDT for a close 2 count. Theory pleads with Lesnar now as Lesnar fumes and seethes at him. Theory climbs the chamber and has actually escaped through the chains. Lesnar quickly climbs up the chains and traps Theory now. Lesnar brings Theory back to the top of one of the pods. Lesnar smashes Theory's face into the glass at the top of the chamber a few times. Theory collapses at Lesnar's feet on top of the pod. Lesnar scoops Theory on top of the pod, holding him on his shoulders. Lesnar launches Theory off the pod to the steel down below with a massive F5, dumping Theory to the steel with ease as fans go wild. Lesnar climbs back down and covers Theory in the middle of the ring to win the WWE title. Winner and new WWE Champion, Brock Lesnar. After the match, Lesnar stands tall and smiles as he takes the WWE title. Lesnar mocks Theory with the selfie and begins celebrating as the music hits. Cole confirms champion versus champion at WrestleMania 38 with WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns versus new WWE Champion Brock Lesnar. We go to replays. Lesnar marches around the chamber with the WWE title on his shoulder as the Jeddah crowd cheers him on. Lesnar raises the title in the air as pyro explodes on the stage. We see more fireworks exploding outside of the Jeddah Superdome. Lesnar exits the chamber as we see officials checking on Theory. Lesnar stops and poses with fans at ringside as Cole hypes Lesnar vs Reigns at WrestleMania once again. Lesnar raises the WWE title on the ramp once again and salutes the crowd before making his exit. Elimination Chamber goes off the air.